reception. I'm Paul Holden. I'm the President and CEO of the Burnaby Board of Trade. And welcome to today's event, which I'd like to acknowledge is being held on the traditional territory of the Coast Salish peoples, including the Tsleil-Waututh, Musqueam and Squamish nations. This event is part of our programming that comes through our Women's Business Success Network, which is a group that we established about 7 or 8 years ago now. And the group has been focused very much over those years on providing opportunities to support women in business through either events or policy or other activities and initiatives. And we've had some great work and success in the years since we've been running the program. Today, we're also officially relaunching that program and restarting it as we enter a new year. We'll be inviting our members later on today to join a revamped Women's Business Success Network committee to help us deliver that programming and policy positions that I mentioned earlier that support women in business. I'm also pleased to announce here that following a vote by our Board of Directors yesterday, the Burnaby Board of Trade is joining the 50-30 campaign, which challenges businesses and other organisations to achieve gender parity of 50% on their boards and greater representation, which is the 30, for underrepresented groups. This commitment by the Board of Trade is in line with our leading advocacy over recent years to encourage more opportunities for women to serve on leadership boards. And I'm very pleased to say that we're already at or beyond, close to or beyond both of these targets, and we look forward to continuing to advocate for inclusion in business going forward. The event format today is a webinar format, so if you have any questions during the event, please feel free to type them into the chat box at the bottom of your screen, and we'll monitor those throughout the event. I'd like to acknowledge, first of all, our event sponsors, who we're very pleased to have with us today. And you'll receive information about them in our recap email later on. But to introduce them now, at the platinum level, we have the BCIT School of Business and Media, which is one of the largest business and media schools in Western Canada with over 100 programs offered full-time and part-time to help students prepare for their career or for professionals to advance and develop their skills. BCIT is a pillar of the Burnaby community, and we thank them for their tremendous ongoing support. Excuse me. Scotiabank is another platinum sponsor, one of the leading Canadian banks. Scotiabank has a tremendous presence here in Burnaby and is one of our key annual partners. They're also home to the Scotiabank Women's Initiative, which supports women-owned and women-led businesses with equal access to capital, mentorship programs, and education. Thank you, Scotiabank, for your support today. Excuse me. At the gold level, we have ABC Recycling, which is a Burnaby-based metal recycling company with a 100-plus year legacy, an impressive dedication to community, and a commitment to environmental sustainability. They're a member of our Burnaby Business Hall of Fame. ABC Recycling is a great supporter of the Burnaby Board of Trade, and we thank them for their support today as well. And our final gold sponsor, Ricoh Canada, provides innovative products and services for today's digital workplace, enabling individuals to work smarter and business to be more successful. Today, Ricoh provides digital workplace solutions to more than 1.3 million companies worldwide, creating highly effective and productive work environments. Thank you to Ricoh. And I'd also like to thank our roster of annual partners, which I think you can see on the screen right now, and who are organizations that really step up throughout the year to support our work and the business community in general. So thank you to all of our partners. I'd also like now to invite to say a few words on behalf of one of our platinum partners today, Morgan Westcott, who's the Associate Dean, Marketing Management from the BCIT School of Business and Media. Morgan, thanks for being here today and for your support. I'd like to invite you to say a few words.
Thanks so much, Paul. It's really a fantastic honor to be here today representing our school, and I know you'll hear later from our dean, who's one of the panelists. As it was mentioned, BCIT has one of the largest business and media schools in Western Canada, and we have several departments, including accounting, finance, and risk management, digital arts and media design, broadcast, business management, operations management, and marketing management, and I'm representing that department here today. one of the things I was thinking about this morning, because I was asked to speak to women in business, is just the incredible resilience of women. You know, I'm a working mom, I'm a working single mom, and these are very unusual circumstances that we find ourselves in. And when I think of the women that I work with alongside and certainly on our leadership team is predominantly women, is just how resilient we are in this challenging environment, and our ability to get things done really strikes me. I actually chose to attend the BCIT School of Business and Media when I was pivoting in my career, and later came back to teach, and now I'm on the leadership team. And so I'm thrilled that BCIT is able to support women in their education as we try to advance our careers and make our communities better places to live. One small thing I wanted to mention, or a new thing that's on the horizon for BCIT, are micro-credentials. So if you're interested in learning about really specific things, we have a micro-credential coming out, for example, on how to start a functional business website with Shopify. We have a micro-credential coming out on how to enhance and maximize your LinkedIn presence. And those will be coming out shortly. We don't quite have information on our website yet, so I would encourage you to connect with myself or with Leela, who's going to be speaking later today. You can connect with us over LinkedIn, and then I'll be able to provide you with information about how to register for those micro-credentials. It's a pilot project, and so the first offering is going to be a really exciting chance for us to connect with people in business and hear what they think about this new and innovative programming that we're putting out. That's everything that I had to say this morning. Thanks again for the honor of being able to address such an esteemed panel and all of the participants. I'm really looking forward to the discussion that's about to unfold. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Morgan. Appreciate your comments, and thank you very much for being here today. We appreciate BCIT's support of this event and of many of our programs. I'm now pleased to introduce our moderator for today's panel discussion, Paula Scaper. Paula was a fundamental part of starting our Women's Business Success Network. She's currently the chair of our Government Relations Committee, and she's a member of our Board of Directors. And on top of doing all of that, she's the president of Kinetics Media Communications. Thank you, Paula, and I'll let you take over from here.
Thanks, Paul, and welcome everybody. Let's jump right in. We've got some terrific panelists today that I'm dying to hear from. So I'm going to quickly welcome them to you, so you know who's on the screen. I'm also going to let them speak for themselves about their background, but by way of introduction, let's start with, we have Supneet Chawla. Supneet is the founder and CEO of ACE Trades and Technical Institute and the ACE Community College. We are also joined by Dr. Leela Dawson, the Dean of the School of Business and Media at BCIT, and Ashley Ramsey. Ashley joins us from the Okanagan, where she is the founder and CEO of Yeti Farm Creative, and also Dr. Joy Johnson. Dr. Johnson is the President and Vice Chancellor at Simon Fraser University. So welcome, ladies. It's a privilege to have you join us today. With today's event being digital, I'm going to try and avoid cross-talking by calling on each of you by name as we go through. But please, if you have a point that you want to make, interject. And if I'm not catching it, put your hand up so that we know that you have something to contribute to the conversation. To get started, I would like to give each of you just 1 minute to give us some background on yourself, your career, and so that everybody in the room knows the perspective that you're joining us from today. Supneet, can I start with you?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. My name is, she introduced me. My name is Supneet Chawla. I am a person who started ACE Trades and Technical Institute about 15 years ago. My background is I'm an electrical engineer and of course woman of color. Last 15 years has been a great journey. Started ACE Trades, where the specialization for our colleges to provide Red Seal training to people who have enough experience in the trade but don't have the ticket. So plumbers, electricians, pipe fitters, welders, from various trades that people come from within Canada or abroad. They have not finished their apprenticeship training and they want to get the Red Seal ticket. That's where ACE Trades come into play. ACE Community College is brainchild of ACE Trades, where we provide apprenticeship training for electrical trade. We are an approved training provider from ITA and PTIB. the reason I wanted to join this group is because I'm a big believer of female power, and through this group, I think it'll be nice to get to see other women leaders and connect with them.
Thank you, Supneet. That was wonderful. Leela, can I ask you to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Paula. My name is Leela Dawson. I am currently the Dean of Business and Media at BCIT. This follows a very long career in post-secondary education. I've worked for several other post-secondary institutions, about 20 years in the college and institute sector in BC, prior to that in universities. It's been a fascinating career. I am profoundly interested in changing the world and changing the world through education. And this is what has kept me engaged in my career for the last many years. I'm not even going to say how many. So that's a little bit about me, and happy to be here today. I'm honored and happy to be here today.
Thank you, Leela. Ashley, would you tell us a little bit about your history?
Hi, everyone. Nice to be here. What an honor to be here today. I always start by saying my first entrepreneurial business was a flower stand when I was 4 years old. I've owned multiple businesses. I've done baby products. I've done a house blog we were monetizing when I was pregnant with my first child. And now I run an animation studio. So 13 years ago, we started a studio, my husband and I, and we've scaled it up quite significantly in the last 5 years. We've started with 5 people. We now have 175 seats. We're producing content for Amazon, Netflix, NBC Universal, Chorus, all the big broadcasters. So of course, I'm a passionate entrepreneur with an interest in the creative process. I started my education at the University of British Columbia. I completed my Bachelor of Arts. I was going to be a teacher, and then I landed a job at an animation studio, and I just never looked back. And I grew up the ranks in the production industry as a receptionist, and then I ended up as a producer, and then I think it was just my entrepreneurial spirit. I couldn't stamp it down anymore, and away we went. We started the studio. We took out our first computer loan for $20,000 and went on our credit report and the whole 9 yards. So I am a true entrepreneur who started with absolutely nothing, no help from parents. I have 2 children. One of them is 13, one of them is 6. It's been an incredibly challenging year for all of us, but we have maintained a remote studio since March 15th, 2020. We continue to be remote. I am in the studio today, and you know, we continue to produce content without a hitch. So it's been quite cool to live through this. So pretty excited to share some of my wisdom and whatever else I can today.
Thank you, Ashley. That's quite a story. And now, Joy, before you start, I know that this is actually your first time speaking to us at the Burnaby Board of Trade since you assumed the position of President and Vice Chancellor to Simon Fraser University last year. So may I start by welcoming you to, it's wonderful to have you here and join us. And I'd love it if you would share a minute about your background as well, but also if you wouldn't mind kicking us off today by sharing some of your thoughts on leadership and the challenges and maybe some of the opportunities women have stepping into leadership roles, perhaps maybe some that you've gleaned from your very recent experience taking on a very large and quite public leadership position with SFU.
Thank you so much, Paula. It's really a pleasure to be here today with the Burnaby Board of Trade. As you said, my first event with the BBOT. I also want to thank and congratulate Paul. I'm thrilled that you've joined the 50-30 initiative. I think that's absolutely fantastic to see that leadership coming out of the Burnaby Board of Trade. And Paul, thanks so much for the land acknowledgement. I also want to say that I certainly recognize that as a settler on this land, I have a responsibility, as do all of us, to repair relations between ourselves and the Indigenous people whose lands we occupy. And really just want to thank you for that as well. Just a few words about my background and about how I take on leadership. First of all, I just want to say I started as president and vice chancellor at SFU in September, on September 1st. And when I put my hand up to take on this role, I had no idea I'd be doing so in the midst of a global pandemic. So it's been a challenging time, and there have been bumps along the way. And I have to say there's no place I'd rather be. SFU is a great institution, and I'm really honored to be part of this community. And I've really seen the community pull together. A little bit about me. Prior to my academic career, my first degree was in nursing, and I worked as a nurse for 5 years on the front lines, and really was passionate about that, but decided I wanted to do more and went back to graduate school and did my master's and PhD, and then came back and joined the UBC School of Nursing. And most of my research was related to public health. I had the privilege of being the director for the Center for Addictions Research at BC at UBC, and really enjoyed my career in research, but was looking to do more. I was fascinated by the world of research and the opportunities, and saw leadership opportunity and became the scientific director with the Canadian Institutes of Health Research and led their Institute of Gender and Health, and really started to understand how policy, in particular a perspective that takes into account gender, can be so powerful in terms of making a difference for research, but for also the health of Canadians. I really was looking for my next opportunity, and was really excited about the opportunity at SFU. And so after 7 years at CIHR, I put my hand up and was lucky enough to become the Vice President Research and International at SFU, and served in that role for 6 years. And it really was a privilege to be part of the SFU community and to think about the ways that we could continue to build our research opportunities and partner with communities. As president, I have to say it's been a bit of a wild ride. I do think, for me at least, probably, and we'll talk more about this, the most important lesson for me in terms of leadership is to be my authentic self, to step up and not pretend to be anything other than Joy Johnson. And I have been talking to our community about priorities and where we can go as an institution. And these are things that I'm personally committed to, but also things that I think our whole community is committed to as well. And those priorities relate to decolonization and reconciliation, diversity and inclusion, and anti-racism, but also really making sure we've got a great university providing an excellent student experience. I'm really excited about this panel today. I certainly have experienced a number of challenges in my leadership journey, and just look forward to engaging with all of you today.
Thank you, Joy. Ashley, could you please talk to us? So every one of our panelists has stepped forward to take the reins in your own careers, and each of you have found very different paths to leadership and very different ways of embodying leadership. Ashley, you spoke in your introduction a lot about your entrepreneurial spirit and feeling that you just were called to business leadership. Can you tell us a little bit about what happened, or what were the factors that really made you know that that was the path for you and got you to take that jump?
Sure, for sure. I think I also serve on a couple of boards. I've always had sort of an angle towards community service and community impact. And I think that just comes from my roots. My grandmother would always say, you know, get out there and volunteer and make a difference in your community. And I think that that combined with sort of that, I had two parents who were very entrepreneurial and very driven. My mother was a single mother who raised us. She worked for the BC Lottery Corporation. She rose the ranks to the highest executive position. My aunt was the VP of TELUS Consumer Relations. So I grew up with very strong women. So I had this like interesting blend of like, go, 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 you can do anything, and watching these role models in my life. And so I think as a little girl, you know, witnessing that and then just being all about the community. And so for me, it was like, well, you know what, why not? I could do this, why not, right? And just, I'll create jobs in my community. I will change my community. And that was the big catalyst. I think just that blend of nurture and nature.
That's fascinating. Supneet, you've taken a very different path and a non-traditional path as a woman in trades. So can you kind of step in and, from your perspective, what called you to start a trade school of all schools? What called you to start a trade school, and how has that journey been for you?
It has been an amazing journey. I started as a 15 years ago, being an engineer and working in an electrical field. First of all, coming from a place where, like coming from India, I am brown by my background is Indian. Growing up in India, we were two sisters and a brother. My dad never thought a boy is better than a female. We were raised like boys, me and my sister. My dad always taught us that there's nothing you can't do which a boy can do. So we were, a very strong leader was my dad, actually, not my mother. So growing up in that environment, we were always taught that, because we come from a culture where females, like again, the culture I came from, where females never worked, and they always had a hand to ask for money from a man. So my dad used to always say, never put a hand up to ask for money, always be ready to give. So from that perspective, we were raised in an environment where you are the leader, a female is a leader, and make sure that you are self-sufficient for yourself, and maybe you are at a position where you can provide for other people. So 15 years ago, when I was working as an engineer, I felt that there is a need for, because education has been very big for me. I've gone through a lot of schooling, a lot of education, and education was very much necessary for people here in Vancouver, where they are going into trades, but they don't have a certification. They're working in the trade, but do not have the confidence to even get their ticket, forget about going even higher as project managers. So that's the essence of beginning this school. We started literally from, I personally started this from my parents' garage, where I started to teach for kids, for people who are in their mid-30s to late 40s, who have done experience as electricians, but they don't have somebody to support them so that they can successfully challenge an ITA regulated exam. That's where this whole thing started from. And 15 years later, we are doing 25 trades: electrical, plumbing, pipe fitting, ironworker, millwright, instrumentation, cook, hairdressing, so many trades. And I have an amazing team of people that has supported this college. We have an amazing group of instructors who always have come from a place of that they care. They're not just there for a paycheck. They really care for their students and their success. So in a nutshell, I didn't have a vision 20 years later that this is where we're gonna land up. It's just, I started from nothing, and this is just, I'm just thankful we are here with the team I got.
That's wonderful. I'm starting to feel a bit of a theme here, that our women leaders are really driven by contribution to community and our impact on the community that we live in, which is wonderful to hear. And Supneet, thank you also for really pointing out the important role that fathers play in crafting and supporting strong women who are able to have the impact that you have had in your community. Leela, I'm going to ask you to follow that.
Okay. Oh yeah, no problem. Well, I have to say that as Ashley and Supneet were talking about their families, I did end up reflecting back on my own family experience. Both of my parents, the message we got from them on a very regular basis was, you have a good brain, use it. And both my parents, particularly my mother, was very involved in the community. And I think that has had an impact on me and on my siblings. I had two older sisters as well as a younger brother. So I had some other women in, to look up to, girls and women to look up to as I was growing up, all of which left me in a situation where I think I have to say, I never really felt limited. I always felt that I had opportunities and that my family would support me in those opportunities. And I have to say that to this day, I can say that my family would support me in opportunities and are some of my closest friends. So that's been very important. In terms of leadership, I think one of the ways I chose the paths I did, I certainly, my early career was in banking, and when I moved into the post-secondary system, which was after I completed my master's degree, it was really around an interesting opportunity and where I felt that I could make a difference. And I really wanted to contribute in a very tangible and meaningful way. And so I felt that that was an opportunity to do so. And it was an interesting opportunity. I always have looked for interesting opportunities. So that's, I'll stop now.
Thank you, Leila. It's fascinating, really, as we're getting to know you. I mean, just to pause for a moment and recognize that on the dais here, we have healthcare represented, we have the world of finance represented, we have media and animation, we have trades and technical, and of course, very clearly represented is the importance of education and the importance of giving back to community. And it really, you know, listening to your stories makes me think about what we've been watching unfold south of the border over the last several weeks. And just last week, we saw, of course, I don't know about you, but I got up and I put everything aside so that I could watch the swearing in of the first female vice president of the United States and the first person of color to be sworn in and the first interracial person. It was quite a milestone on so many levels. And I wonder, how important do you think it is for women to have examples like Kamala Harris, that we can see women stepping into leadership roles, women who refuse to acknowledge that there is a glass ceiling and just blast right through it? Is there anyone who, yes, Joy?
Yeah, no, I think it's absolutely essential. And, you know, that's why I'm really pleased about the 50-30 initiative, because it's challenging us to make sure that we make space for women in leadership roles. I think that, you know, I just think about my own career and the women leaders that really influenced me, just to see them charging ahead, being fearless, thinking about the opportunities, putting themselves out in terms of opportunities. I mean, I often say to colleagues who ask me, well, Joy, how do you get, where you're going? One of the things, piece of advice I always offer is that you don't get a job you don't apply for. But on the other hand, I think that we often are timid. We feel that we can't take advantage of those opportunities. And we know that from the literature as well, that women will not put themselves out there as much as men. They will, even if they have the same qualifications, not apply for the same types of jobs. So to see women in those roles, to see diverse people in those roles, I think is inspirational for all of us. And we need to continue to lift those examples up and to celebrate them.
Lila, did you have anything to add?
I'd say I completely agree with Joy of the importance of having women in these roles. It's so important for people to have examples to look at. And I have no doubt Kamala Harris faced many obstacles along the way and was able to overcome them through talent, determination. I don't know what it took, but it was a lot, I have no doubt. But in doing so, she has helped create a pathway for others where people don't have to feel limited by their culture or their upbringing, but can take advantage of their own skills and abilities, develop a support network if they don't have one naturally, and help move themselves forward. And I think she's given us a wonderful example of someone that has just done so much with so much talent and grace, and has stepped into, I mean, politics is a world where women are still hugely underrepresented. And I have to say, many women that I've spoken to have just said that, you know, it's too brutal. They don't want to be there. And the question always becomes, well, how do we change that? How do we change that environment where, honestly, it shouldn't be brutal? and perhaps by working on creating a more diverse, by creating more diverse leadership, we actually reduce the brutality.
Thank you, Leila. Supneet, was there anything that you wanted to add personally in terms of the importance of role models that we have, and role models from across, you know, the spectrum of ethnicities and gender identities and all the ways that we identify ourselves?
I think personally for me, if I didn't have my dad as a role model, I won't be where I am. There is so much support that comes with that role model. First of all, the thought, it's always, I've always lived my life with this principle to think, you have to think before you can act. So the thought process only will come when there is somebody in your life who can make you think that way. So for me, if people call me, I think I have a far long way to be calling myself successful. When people ask me what is the reason of my success, I would say without a role model, it's not possible. Especially as a female, we have these thoughts that are put together in around society. I was actually reading this this morning on LinkedIn. I think it's a group that I follow about women leaders, and somebody said that she actually put photos of two people together. The first photo was about a person who is married with a kid, and the second photo is the same successful woman, but she's just drinking wine and having a pizza. And what the whole post was about is we as females are taught that we are only successful when we have a kid and a husband. So coming from a place of not just having that, but having your own successful life, just because those norms you don't follow doesn't make you any less as a woman. But we are so ingrained in our thoughts with those thought process of, you know, if you don't have those sticky boxes, you're not good enough as a woman. And it's so ingrained in our thoughts for years. It doesn't matter what country you come from, what culture you come from, it's there for females. And it's so important to have that role model, which can tell you, no, you can think otherwise as well.
Thank you, Supneet.
Very, very important for somebody's success to have that.
Thank you so much for that. That is a beautiful and passionate statement, and I just so felt what you were saying. Ashley, I'm going to ask you to take things a little further and in a slightly different direction, building on our conversation about the importance of role models, and you've shared the role models. I know for myself in my business journey that when I found a community of mentors and women who had gone places I hadn't yet, or had just simply survived some of the things that I was experiencing, that had a real impact in how I felt about myself and my business going forward. Do you have a comment on how important it is for women to find mentors and a network of advisors when they're aspiring to leadership, or wake up one day and go, oh my gosh, what did I do? I started a business.
Well, this might take a little bit more time. I'm going to try and be super concise because I have a lot to say about this, a lot. And so I have been through almost every single accelerator program the province can offer. I've just come out of the federal program to support female entrepreneurs. Somebody needs to mute. I can't hear you.
Yeah, I can hear that too.
Okay.
Keep talking, Ashley. Corey will sort it out.
The other participation that I've been on both sides. I've been mentored and I've been mentee. And now I'm starting another business that is going to focus around a different kind of mentorship, and it's actually more around the core being of you as a human, not as a woman, not as a man. Mostly focusing, I will focus on women because that's my sweet spot. I'm a little bit of a feminist underneath it all. But you know, one of my mentors for the last year under the federal program was a male. His name's Larry, but he's just a great guy, and without him, I would be drop dead on the ground with some of the stuff that I have been having to deal with this year in the business. So I've done programs, I've had personal advisors, I have investors who serve on my board as advisors. I think surrounding you with people who are generally supportive and cheering you on and just really good to you, like you're doing a great job and this is normal, and people that normalize this job of all of the things that you have to handle as a CEO or as an entrepreneur. Oh man, I don't even know, like I have so much more to say, but even just the other day, I was working with Shannon she's the CEO of Mamas for Mamas, and they've got 62 franchise branches all across Canada now to help mamas in need. And, you know, we spent an hour together, and, you know, that came from another woman in the community who was like, Shannon needs to talk to you. She's going through some of the same stuff. And we talked about things like self-care, body talk, healing our, you know, our past, and just being real humans. And I think that that's the most important thing that I've experienced, is just really finding people who you can just be real with. And also on the flip side, finding programs that can help you get to the next level. So try to find a program that's going to laser focus around a certain issue you're dealing with in your business. So there's tons down on the coast. I was participating in the Accelerate Okanagan program. So I could go on and on for another hour about mentorship, but obviously you can hear that it's really important to me, and I'm starting to do it myself now.
Fantastic. Joy or Leela, did you have anything to add to that perspective as a woman who is working in leadership within a bigger organization? Joy?
Yeah, I really appreciate what Ashley had to say. And I certainly, for myself as well as a president, I think to recognize, I think it's important to recognize that no matter what kind of leadership position you're taking on, there's no way you can know it all. There is no way that you have all the answers. And so you do need to surround yourself with people you can talk to about things, and that you can reach out, people you can reach out to. I think that we, at least for myself, particularly in my early years, I had this vision of a leader being, you know, very self-sufficient, very strong, powerful, etc. And I think we are now seeing models of leadership that are really challenging that really are leaders who are prepared to be vulnerable, to admit that they don't know everything. And I think that's the kind of leadership that many of us are wanting to see in our society, that kind of authentic leadership that Ashley was talking about. And I've been really privileged as the president of SFU. Part of my work initially was to make sure I was creating my network. I'm lucky there's a group of women presidents in Canada who are kind of self-organizing, and I show up and participate in that group, but also really looking for other people who I can reach out to and talk to about the issues that I'm facing. I think it's really important that we spend time cultivating our networks and making sure that there are people that we can lean on, because it is tough. I think we all have to recognize that we will all face challenges and feel that there are days that we need help, and it's important to be able to reach out for that help.
I think one of the things that's been important and helpful for me is to actually ensure that the people around me, my network, my colleagues, etc., are prepared to tell me some hard truths sometimes. And Morgan can attest to this, I'm always full of ideas. I always have 50 great things that we could do next week. And I need people to say, well, no, or that's lovely, Leila, but you need to think that through a little more deeply, or whatever. But that they're prepared to be candid with me. So I don't need people to just say, oh, you're great, you're awesome. I need them to say, how are you going to do this? What are the resources, etc. So I think that's important, is that having those candid, truthful friends, even when that truth might hurt a bit, that's a really, really important part of success as a leader, and being prepared to listen to that tough talk sometimes.
That is the challenging piece when you're entrepreneurial minded, and I think that crosses genders, is the ability to close this and use the ears to hear that difficult feedback, isn't it? As we're moving forward, two of you come to us from really working within a large organization and having, you know, that structure and that bureaucracy, and two of you have blazed it out on your own and built very successful, thriving businesses. I'm curious how, when you look back at your experience and the environment that you're in now, how you feel businesses and organizations, and even just managers who are in a position of developing young women, can ensure that they're creating a culture that really makes it possible for women to shine and creates that opportunity for women to rise to their full potential and not slink off to the coffee machine, as we are wont to do when asked sometimes. So maybe you could start us off with that. And if you want to pass, it's okay.
No, I still remember my first day of class. I had a group of about 20 people. I was teaching a course in Fort Mac. And I show up in front of the class, and they think, at that time I was 15 years ago, very young. And my students think that she must be the receptionist, the teacher will come. So when I show up as an instructor, there was definitely judgments about what she can or cannot do as a teacher or as an instructor. So what I see is the mindset of, because majority of our clientele is men, it's trades guys, it's men. I think in the last 15 years, I personally have taught about 10,000 guys and maybe 5 women in trade. From that perspective, the thought process that a female can be in the trades is something that requires to change. Adding on to that thought, I believe that's just creating an environment where a female is heard. I think that would be a good starting point. And letting your, like even in the childhood stage, letting your family know that female is equally as powerful as a man is very important. So it requires change, but it's gonna, that's a thought process. It'll take some time to get there. But I think the starting point for us is having our people that we look forward to or look up to for information to change that thought process, that women leaders are important to society and they can lead eventually the country, which we saw last week as an example. So yeah.
Thank you, Supneet. Joy, could I ask you to weigh in briefly for us? Yeah,
I do think a leader has a responsibility in a large organization like Simon Fraser University I think tone on top matters. I think it matters to say that there are certain values that I have, that I expect, and that the university holds, and we will hold people accountable. And this is about inclusion. This is about respect. But I also recognize in my role as president, I need to make sure those structures are in place to support that work. So we're in the midst of hiring a new VP Equity and Inclusion to make sure we can drive that work forward. I also recognize it's my role as a leader to create a culture of safety so that people, to Leila's point, can put their hand up and have those difficult conversations. So that people will feel listened to. And that's hard work. That is not just about me, that's about the whole organization and thinking about how we can move forward together. You know, and I will say, and I've said this to the community at SFU, is we're not where we need to be. There is work to be done. And to admit that, that there is work to be done to make sure we are as inclusive as possible, that we're listening to multiple voices. And, you know, part of that is also in terms of making space and bringing people along is to move beyond mentorship to allyship. And allyship is not simply helping someone, but actually lifting them up and giving them those opportunities. And to make sure that we are thinking about, you know, tapping people for roles and giving them those opportunities. So there's so much we need to do to think about the cultures of our organizations, but certainly the leader has an important role to play in my view.
Thank you so much for that, Joy. And I realize we are in the last 5 minutes of our conversation today. And Joy, I know you have a very tight schedule. So in case we don't get an opportunity as we wrap up, I'd like to thank you for joining us today. It's been fascinating to hear your perspective. And what I would love to do in our last few minutes is have each of you share with us, if you could go back to your younger self and meet yourself on your convocation day and give yourself one piece of advice as a parting thought for our audience, would you share with us what that is? And Joy, I'm going to start with you in respect of the timeline that you're on.
Yeah, you know, I've kind of already given that advice, and it's one that I continue to remember, and that's put your hand up. You don't get a job you don't apply for. Be brave, be strong, and be courageous. And I think that's a message we all need to hear.
Thank you so much. Leela, what about you?
I would give some similar advice in that look for those opportunities, especially if you're in a large organization. Look for committees or things that are a little bit outside of just your regular job, and look for those and put your hand up. Take those opportunities, and don't talk to yourself about the fact that you don't know as much as somebody else, because somebody always knows more than you do. You know, really seize those opportunities and look for that ally or sponsor that can help you achieve that.
Awesome. Thank you, Leela. I'm just going to work down my screen. Ashley.
Sure. You know, I have a lot of advice, but, you know, I've made a lot of decisions that I knew using sort of Tim Ferriss's advice, which I believe everybody should be reading or listening to him. Tim Ferriss, great guy. He's written the 4-Hour Workweek. Talks about the full body yes, and I think that you know, I made a lot of decisions that I knew in my heart and my gut were not right. I was using my mind and my logic, but really the mind, the heart, and the gut need to be totally in sync. And if one of them is out, it's a no. And the second piece of advice I would have given her is that the only risk is one that is absolutely 100% irreversible. So take the risk.
Excellent. I love that. Absolutely love that. And Sudneet, I'm going to ask you to close off our panel today with your thoughts, your advice for a younger you.
I love what Ashley said. I think I'm in harmony with what 100% of what Ashley said. As a female, we got to take risks. And if we lose an opportunity because we don't feel confident about what we are doing, we know in our heart we are doing the right thing, but we just don't have the courage. Be courageous, take the risk. You cannot see 100. It's an example, somebody gave it to me years ago, and which has stayed in my head. When you're driving on a highway, you don't see 100 meters ahead of you. You may see it maybe 10 meters ahead of you on a dark night. Take the risk, take the first step, the rest will follow.
Brilliant. That is a wonderful way to close our panel discussion today. Leela, Sudneet, Joy, Ashley, thank you so much for joining me in this discussion and for your generous giving of your time and your expertise to the women in the room here today. Paul, I'll pass it back to you now to wrap us up.
Thank you very much, Paula, and thank you to our panelists. I've really got to love these events over the years we've been doing them. We've had some great panel discussions, and today was absolutely no exception. Really informative and interesting content, delivered with a lot of passion and a great deal of of experience behind it as well. So thank you very much to the speakers and to you, Paula, for moderating it so well. I have to say, just as a sort of a bit of a proud dad moment, my daughter's watching this. She's just graduated with a Bachelor of Science just before Christmas. Very proud of what she's achieved so far, and really looking forward to what she will achieve going forward. And I'm certain she got some great inspiration and some great helps and advice from the speakers today. So thank you very much again. I'd like to thank our sponsors, BCIT School of Business and Media and Scotiabank at the Platinum level, and at the Gold level, ABC Recycling and Ricoh. A few more events coming up, and I think you might be seeing those. There's a screen coming up, but a couple more events we're doing. Tomorrow we have a Management, Labour and Employment Law webinar at 9:30 with a guest speaker from Deer Lake Law, discussing important elements to include in an employment contract, as well as your obligation to ensure the workplace is free of bullying and harassment. So that'll be an excellent session as well. On Friday, we get back to our monthly networking sessions, our NRG morning sessions, which run from 8:30 to 9:30. If you haven't attended one before, they're great fun, great sessions, very lively. And we even managed to get them lively and engaging through an online platform. So if you'd like to connect with some fellow Burnaby Board of Trade members, please come along to that event. On the 3rd of February, Business Credit Availability Program. This is a presentation on BCAP and how it is specifically created to help small businesses across all industry sectors. If your business needs a helping hand during these times, I'd encourage you to attend this session to learn a little bit more. And the last event to talk about today is digital security and ransomware. Annually, over $14 billion is lost due to cybercrime. And we're pleased to have Jeremy Colwell, founder of CPG Systems, who'll be discussing cyber security concerns, how to protect against ransomware, and much more. You can sign up for these and all other BBOT events at bbot.ca, and we'd encourage you to have a look at what's coming up and sign up for what you're able to attend. Thanks again to Paula and to the speakers today. Excellent session. And we look forward to seeing you all soon. Have a great rest of the week. Thanks very much for joining us. Bye-bye.